তখন ওদেরও মন ভালো লাগে, প্লাস আমাকে যখন বাবা বলে ডাকে আমার মনটা আরো খুব খুশি হয় আর কি। ওই বাচ্চা কাচ্চা যখন ওই গরিব বলতে গেলে কি বাচ্চা কাচ্চার মুখ দেখে তখন আমার বুকটা এত উঁচু হয়ে যায় যে আমার মতন কেউ বড় লোক নেই। হয়তো নুন ভাতই খাচ্ছি কিন্তু খুব আনন্দ হয় যে না কারোর সাথে ঝাঁটি নেই, কারোর সাথে এই যে মিলে রয়েছে আমরা, আমাদের খুব আনন্দ হয়। আমরা সবাই বন্ধু।
For hundreds, maybe even thousands of years, people have studied depression and psychological illness. The goal of psychologists was primarily to rid a patient of their problems. Recently, however, modern science has begun to look at how happiness works. What are the building blocks of a life that's not just free of illness, but one that flourishes with a deep and genuine happiness?
When I got into happiness research, it was 1981. It was not a popular field in psychology. People thought it was flaky, that it was loose. A professor said to me, you can never measure happiness. Now, why they thought you could measure depression, which they were all doing, but you couldn't measure happiness, I'm not sure. And then in the 90s, people started getting interested in it, and now it's absolutely amazing how many people are interested.
Magazine articles and books are being written about it. There's even a new field of science called positive psychology, which studies happiness. It became the most popular class at Harvard, with 1,000 kids showing up every week for a happiness class.
The first thing is to realize that happiness can actually help you get your other goals, have better relationships, make more money, do better at the job. People on the job are going to like you better if you're happy. What we've done, and I've done this for the last 25 years, collecting data. So we follow people and look at their moods over time. We've also looked at random samples of people from around the world, who's happy, who's not happy. Then we crunch all these numbers and we say, gee, what really matters?
By studying identical twins, people with almost exactly the same genetic makeup, researchers have discovered that approximately 50% of the differences in our happiness levels is determined by our genes. They call that our genetic set point, or our genetic set range.
Most of us are born with a certain range of happiness that we fall in most of the time. And even when really good or really bad things happen to us, we kind of tend to return to our set point.
And while 50% is genetic, amazingly, our circumstances like what job we have or how much money we have, our social status, our health, those things that many of us are told to focus on, they only account for 10% of the differences in our happiness.
Most people are kind of stunned at how small that is, but that still leaves 40% unaccounted for. And so our theory suggests that there is a great deal you can do to become happier, and that 40% is left for kind of intentional behavior, things that we can do on a regular basis to become happier. It's very important if a person wants to become happier to try not to adapt to what they're doing. So they would consciously vary what they do. It could be like when you do your daily run that you take a different route. I mean, that's not really, mind-boggling. For some people, it's going to be a lot of change. For some people, it's going to be a little, but that change is important. It's sort of the variety of
It turns out that there's another component of surfing and exercise that can increase your happiness. It's what an athlete would call being in the zone.
I started studying people who were doing something very difficult and demanding for no good reason, no money, no status, nothing, but just because they like to do it. My understanding of what motivated these activities was not anything that came from outside, but it came from the activity itself. And I gave the name flow to this kind of synergy of different aspects of consciousness where you wish you could go forever because it feels that you are completely fulfilling something that you can do well and you can see it happening and you feel that nothing else matters. You have very clear goals that you know moment by moment what you have to do. Like if you're singing or playing a musical instrument, you always know what notes or chords you want to play next, and you can hear whether you did it right or not. People in that situation feel in control, they forget their problems. Interestingly, they forget themselves, so that the kind of ego that we are always aware of in everyday life disappears. It builds over time a feeling that life is worth living.
Flow can happen almost anywhere. It can happen during personal time, or it can happen with your family. It can even happen at your job.
It's all in the rhythm. It's all in the, just keeping the rhythm going. Doing it 14 years. I love it. Don't want to go nowhere else.
Why do you love it?
It's like cooking. Always is.
I gotta order hash browns all the way. Patty milk.
That's the grill operator.
The research is clear. People who experience flow on a regular basis are happier than those who don't.
We studied some of the happiest people, and we found, without exception, that all of them had close, supportive family and friends. That didn't mean that they loved everybody or, they got along with everybody, but what it meant was every one of them had close family and friends.
We make a distinction between two main kinds of goals or values which people might pursue in life: intrinsic goals and extrinsic goals. So extrinsic goals are extrinsic in the sense that they're focused on something external to you. They're focused on rewards, they're focused on praise, they're focused on getting stuff. And the three main examples of extrinsic goals we've looked at in our research are for money and financial success, for image, kind of looking good, having the right appearance, and for status or popularity. Now we contrast those with intrinsic goals. Intrinsic goals are inherently satisfying in and of themselves because they have to do with intrinsic psychological needs that all people have. And the three intrinsic goals which we've studied are goals for personal growth, trying to be who I really am, having close connected relationships with friends and my loved ones, and then community feeling, which is having a sense of wanting to help the world to be a better place. We found that intrinsic goals are on the exact opposite side of value systems compared to extrinsic goals, okay? They're in opposition with each other. The other thing we know from a decade of research at this point is that people who were more oriented towards money and status and image were reporting less satisfaction with their lives. They were more depressed, more anxious. We found that they felt less vital, less sort of energized in their day-to-day life. On the other hand, intrinsically oriented people were more happy. They were reporting more vitality, less depression, less anxiety.
If our values are a key component of happiness, that may explain one of the anomalies in international happiness research. According to an increasing amount of data, Japan is the least happy of the wealthy industrialized nations.
最後の質問なんですけど、今日は何の日でいらっしゃいますか？
誕生日です。
おいくつになられるんですか
39で
？39、お若いですよね。
ありがとうございます。
はい。けど誕生日の日にこういう友達と飲まれて例えばご両親とか、はい、彼女とかどうおっしゃってますか？
誘われるがままに言ってますんで、彼女には言ってあります。それよりか大事なちょっと仕事の話があるんで、で。
Another country in a different part of the world consistently ranks as the happiest country on earth. Denmark is known for its social equality and high standard of living. All Danes are provided free education through college and free health care for life. But Denmark's most unique and revealing quality is that it has more of its population living in what are called co-housing communities than in any other modern industrialized nation. In Danish co-housing communities, multiple families live on a plot of land, or even in a single building, where certain chores and benefits are shared by everyone.
When I moved in here, I was newly divorced, 2 little children. I didn't have a work, so I was kind of isolated. If I had to move in a flat alone, I would go down, I would be depressed, I would isolate and So I thought I had to find this place, and I found it. It was a miracle I found it. We live 20 families together. The houses are close to each other. This is our house. We live 4 people here, and outside here I have a little extra room. It's like a place to grow flowers, but we use it as a living room. And this it's paintings my children made for me. There's an empty space up there. It's made for my children. Often ask me, and I say it's because I want to show you that we can put up more paintings. It's not finished. It's a working piece. And here is Juliane living, and she has a little animal, which is also a kind of symbol of our flat, our house, because it's a very tiny animal, and it has a very tiny cage to live in. But I used to tell them that this animal has more space than we have. 50 years ago, people in Denmark also lived in Copenhagen, lived in small flats, and they had a lot of children, and they had a nice childhood anyway. So
it's like a big family. Yeah, it's like a big family. I have friends in the school, and I have friends home. It's very nice because so I have many friends.
Det er dejligt at have nogle voksne, der de er meget sådan, passer på en. Ja, hvis nu at der er nogen... Hvis nu jeg har slået mig ned i handen, så er der altid en, der kan komme rendende, hvis det sker noget.
We eat together, and it's very, very nice.
Og lasagnen er deroppe.
Nå, ja. Tak.
I have 3 children, and they eat a lot. It helps me a lot to live in this community because we eat together nearly every evening. We cook 1 or 2 times a month each. It takes 4, maybe 5 hours. And to cook only twice a month instead of every day, it saves a lot of energy of thinking, what is the meal today? And to buy all the stuff and to make it and to do the dishwash. Every day it saves, I don't know, 2 hours and a lot of energy.
And this place, when we get 14, we have to make food.
So it's 2 girls and 14 cooking for 40, 50 people. It's really cool. And they come to ask for help, but they are very good. They do it. Everybody is talking about stress, and the families with small children have stress because they come home from work, they have to buy, they have to cook. And when I come home and I have had my shower, and then I have 2 or 3 hours with my children. I like that these elder people living here because they are kind of grandmother and grandfather for my children. I feel they love my children as much as I do, and they are happy when they visit them, and they come here and they get hugs from my children. And I feel it's a gift from me to my children to live here. So it was a miracle I found this place. It saved me kind of to find it because I needed to be surrounded by other grown-ups, not only my own very small children. I have lived here for 12 years now. I gladly take 12 years more.
Well, if long life is an indication of happiness, then the people in Okinawa, Japan might just be ecstatic. Because according to the Guinness Book of World Records, that's where a disproportionate number of the world's oldest people live. So despite the stress and unhappiness in other parts of Japan, the islanders of Okinawa have a different story to tell, one of longevity and happiness.
沖縄の人はね、働いて畑で働いてきて、夕ご飯食べて、孫なんかと言っときゃ話し会やってか、すぐ眠るからね、ぐっすり眠るかこんな健康になって。
医学的にはこう説明することできないですけどね、小木さんがですね、こう長寿の 村といってですね宣言したのはですね、確かになんとか100歳人口比例ですね 100歳以上の方が世界一であるということですね。
金も買ってる人といて非常に働いた。だからこんな健康。晩になったらまたね、晩になったら晩酌。少しやったら非常にぐっすり眠る。前はね、サウナにわざわざ汗出しに行ってさね、だけどこの畑仕事したら2時間働いてきたらね、もう汗がびっそり、もうとってもいい気持ち。もう汗がびっそりだからすぐお風呂入って朝ごはん食べてまた洗濯やったり。
Besides experiencing flow on a regular basis, Okinawans grow vegetables that subsidize their livelihoods and provide gifts for friends and neighbors, bringing the people even closer together.
自分が作ったのはもう本当に美味しい。全然総力何もしないから。気持ちのせいかね、もう自分たちで作ったのが美味しい。幸せです。
Even the Okinawan traditions keep people connected in unique ways. The island has a traditional band of about 50 people, and the rule is that the band members must be between the ages of 20 and 30. The band is supported by community funds and plays in a different village every Friday night. Since there's not much other nightlife on the island, lots of people come out to see them, both young and old. It's a tradition that ensures regular contact between people, not only from different villages, but from different generations. The Okinawan elders gather each afternoon to have tea and talk about the day at a local community center. And though now housed in a modern building, it's been a staple in Okinawan society as long as people there can remember.
悪いことしていけないというこの気持ちがみんなに親しくしているから両軍の兵隊がここは兵隊がみんな
私はね、戦争未亡人だけど私は人にもやってこの中近所とこのね付き合いする大君の方に高田との方にもね踊り習いに行ったりカラオケしに行きましてこのおばさんが一番可愛い私は本当友達がいっぱいいるのが一番幸せどっちかというととにかく家庭はですね各家庭みんなたまたま不幸がある時はもう部落の人がみんなこの
したら前は埋葬だったけど今もう仮装になりました。仮装してきたらしてうちら団体一門ばっかといってね共同の墓から箱に遺骨を拾ってきてね拾ってきてこの遺骨をすぐこぼしてみんな墓の中にみんな全部のもの。一家族という意味で。そう一門。
social bonding, social interaction, cooperation is programmed to be intrinsically rewarding to humans. That's how we inhibit our self-interest in order to do something with someone. Otherwise, you wouldn't cooperate. You'd be totally self-interested. We do not behave that way. We're social creatures. Interestingly enough, when you put people into a social exchange, where they're given the opportunity to cooperate or to compete, they will in general cooperate with one another. That cooperation elicits dopamine signals that you can measure in the striatum, just like you were squirting juice or cocaine into them. In other words, the act of cooperating with another human can, in the right circumstances, feel just as good as taking a drug that affects your dopamine system.
You claim to be a player, but I f***ed your wife.
In a culture that often encourages competition instead of cooperation, Michael Pritchard has a unique way of teaching kids about happiness.
Middle school, isn't that a wonderful time when you're all going,
whatever. Talk to the booty, the hands off duty. Talk to the palm, you're not the bomb. Loser, loner, wanna be whatever, no dust, shut up. I don't think so. I read it on MySpace, shut up. I love 8th grade boys on the phone. They go, oh, tight, oh, sick, oh. Hey, who is this? Well, I'm up here sweating like Britney Spears on Jeopardy.
How many of you every day see a kid here who gets isolated, teased, picked on, laughed at, and has become the target of lots of other kids teasing and bullying? Raise your hands, please. Raise your hands high, high.
Look around the room, please.
Look how disconnected we get over stuff. I mean, how many of you guys play that video game, Grand Theft Auto Vice City? You run over homeless people. You beat a prostitute to death with a tire iron. You run over cops, paramedics, firefighters. Am I right? Stand in front of me. I'm proud of you. Tell me what happens sometimes. What do they say?
I have a depression disorder and ADHD, so it just feels like life, it feels like it shouldn't be this hard. It's just like every day after school, you start crying for no reason.
What have kids said to you, Ben?
Nerd, loser, gay, all that stuff.
What has it done to your heart, son?
Just makes me feel really bad.
Is it fair to you?
No.
Is it fair to any kid at this school?
No.
Stop a minute. Not on the football field, not on the basketball court, not in all the best academic classes or languages you have will you see Benicia Middle such courage as this. This is the courage you should learn to love and respect and honor. Give his heart a huge round of applause. That's courage, guys. Who else can share?
Everybody knows I'm Joey. So I'm like the shortest kid inside this room. Nobody else is shorter than me. So everybody makes fun of me. They don't even know, man. It's not fair.
Stop a second now, Joe. Take a deep breath. How should we all treat each other? Come with the love now, buddy. Come with the love. Come with the love. How should we all treat each other, Joey?
We should just feel how they feel and tell them that ain't right. You shouldn't be doing that.
Give that a huge round of applause. Good job, brother. Good job. I love you, son. Good job. Compassion leads to happiness.
Compassion. Richard Davidson told us that people who do a specific form of meditation on compassion and loving kindness can increase their happiness levels to a greater extent and for longer periods of time, even than people taking powerful antidepressant medications.
There are specific meditation practices that have been around for more than 2,500 years, which are explicitly designed to cultivate qualities like compassion and loving kindness. The person we've tested the most in our lab is a person by the name of Mathieu Ricard. He has been a Tibetan Buddhist monk for more than 30 years. He also holds a PhD in molecular biology. And we have looked intensively at Matthew's brain, both at rest as well as when he is intentionally generating these states of compassion. So there's no obvious change in external behavior. You know, he's just sitting there, and then we give him the instruction to begin the compassion meditation, and all of a sudden, it's like, you know, parts of the brain are on fire. These are areas of the brain which are extremely important for understanding happiness and well-being. And so we are, for example, currently doing studies where we are having people who've never meditated before, and we're having them do very simple exercises, 2 weeks of training in this simple compassion practice does change the brain in ways which are similar to, although not nearly as well defined as what we see in very long-term meditation practitioners. There is some evidence to indicate that we actually change the gross structure of the brain, literally the size of particular cortical areas in the brain change in their thickness. We, through intention, can change our brain.
I got this life. I get my parents, my friends. I was never really sick. I had always enough food to eat. I am the first one in my generations which never experienced a war. For me, my life is like a loan given from God, and I will give this loan back, but with interest. And that's what we do. You serve your brother in front of you who is in need, and it gives yourself a fulfilled, happy life. Perfect, no?
Gratitude, compassion, caring, love, these are to me what I would call spiritual emotions, and they make you think of things bigger than yourself. If you only seek your own happiness, it can be kind of a selfish thing. But once you move to the spiritual emotions and worry about the well-being of the world, your life grows. You care about something bigger than yourself. You, in a way, can transcend your own life, your own death, by caring about these things that are bigger than yourself.
If each of us even spent a smidgen of time each day actually practicing to cultivate happiness and also to cultivate other virtuous qualities like compassion and altruism, the world would really be a better place, and we'd all be transforming our brains in very positive ways.
And it's not about, oh, I must change my life totally and cut off from my past and I'll be a better person. It's not about that. It's because the trick is to be authentically you.
We should really be thinking of happiness as a skill, which is no different than learning to play the violin or learning to play golf.
The formula for happiness is not the same for everyone. But the good news is that the things we love to do are the building blocks of a happy life. Play, having new experiences, friends and family, doing things that are meaningful, appreciating what we have. These are the things that make us happy, and they're free. And with happiness, the more you have, the more everyone has.